Hello everyone, welcome to my video. Resident Evil 9 is here. Let's talk about it. The more I keep examining this game, it just reminds me of the golden age of gaming. I know, that's a bold statement to make. Just bear with me, hear me out, just hear me out. And once you do, then you can let me know if you agree or disagree. And also, I just want to mention that this isn't a extensive review on Resident Evil 9. It's more of an examination of what this game means for the industry as a whole, what it means for modern gaming. All right, let's talk about this. This game stood out to me because it reminded me when video games felt like events. It reminded me when developers were trying to create something memorable, right? A polished and complete game. And I have to give Capcom credit. They have redeemed themselves in a lot of ways. And the Resident Evil remakes, they have done a damn good job, and they have done a damn good job with course correcting the Resident Evil franchise, and even the new Resident Evil games that take place in first person, and you don't play as the Resident Evil legacy characters. That's a risky thing to do, but those titles were also successful. So I have to give Capcom a lot of credit and how they kept this franchise alive, because this is an old franchise. So the fact that this franchise is alive and well, it's very impressive. It's definitely very impressive. And this is coming from someone who played the first Resident Evil game on the PlayStation 1 console. And it changed my outlook on video games, right? It was one of those franchises that changed my outlook on video games. Same thing with Final Fantasy and Metal Gear Solid. And it just, there video games back then were just built different. And I remember playing Resident Evil 3 Nemesis and fighting off Nemesis. That was scary at the time. And I remember playing Resident Evil 4 for the Nintendo GameCube at GameStop or EB Games. I don't recall. So I have a lot of memorable moments with Resident Evil. So I'm just impressed that this franchise is just kicking. So I'm very impressed. Um, so let's talk about the golden age of gaming, right? It's not, we're not just talking about nostalgia here, right? It's a mindset. We're talking about a mindset here. So when I say why the golden age is so special, it's because back then games felt focused. Developers took risk. Every franchise was trying to reinvent themselves instead of playing it safe. You see new mechanics, you see new storytelling ideas, completely different gameplay experiences from one release to the next. Games felt complete when they were launched for the most part. They were just they weren't built around seasonal updates or long-term monetization plans. They were designed to leave an impression. And it's when you finished the game and sat through the credits, you actually felt like you experienced something special, right? And most importantly, games had identity. You can instantly recognize when a game was unique. If I had to come up with games that were very special to me that I still remember to this day, Max Payne 1, Max Payne 2, um, Tom Clancy Splinter Cell, Tom Clancy Ghost Recon games. So like those games, for some pair of reason, I those games are still they're still memorable, and they're still special to me in a lot of ways. They're very special games, very unique games. So, what about modern gaming, right? What's going on with modern gaming? Let me see if I can keep this short and sweet. um, all right, all right. Somewhere along the way, the industry changed, right? Modern gaming became bigger, more expensive, in many ways more cautious. Studios are chasing trends and life service and endless progression systems and battle passes and engagement metrics. So while some of those ideas worked well financially, but a lot of games started to feel similar. So and video games started to feel like a chore. It didn't. A lot of games lost personality. A lot of games lost identity. Uh, instead of asking what experience do we want the players to have, the question the question often became, how long can we keep the players playing? And so, yeah, and that's the issue with with modern gaming. Are there good examples of live service games? Sure, but there's also bad examples, plenty of them, right? So I think that's my issue with modern games, just to keep it short and sweet. So, and that's one of the reasons why I stopped playing video games. It wasn't because I got too busy. I was working, and I had my own life. I became independent. I became an adult. It wasn't because of that necessarily. It was because the video game industry felt commercial. It felt corporate. It didn't feel like a fun hobby where you can connect with random people and enjoy new experiences together. So I felt like every game I was playing, they were trying to charge me for something. So that's my issue with modern gaming. I didn't like that. That was one of the reasons why I liked video games. I felt like video games, for the most part, didn't feel very corporate or commercial. They felt very honest and genuine. When you played a game, you felt like it was games that were made for gamers by gamers, if that makes sense. But that isn't the case anymore. You have a lot of greedy publishers, and so and the way, and also I don't like how publishers are disrespecting developers today, right, and undermining them, and where is the creative freedom, right? A lot of developers, I watch so many interviews of developers going through these obstacles when they're developing their games, and publishers telling them, "Hey, don't do this. We don't want that." There's no more creative freedom in video games, and that's just so unfortunate. So, yeah, it's very unfortunate. So, again, I want to keep this video too long, but I do want to show you a quick interview of Ken Levine. And Ken Levine is the creative director for Bioshock 1 and Bioshock Infinite. And the reason why I want to show you a quick interview of him, because when you watch an interview with him, it just reminds you what video games were back then, and how video games had merits, had meaning. So let me bring up that video for you.
But it's also this sense of idealization that the America that Comstock seems to be embracing, and Colombia is somehow more American than America itself. They've decided to separate from it. There's so much sort of self-mythologizing, both of the person in Comstock, in the image of Colombia, and then America, with the idea that you see Jefferson, you see Ben Franklin, and they're kind of revered as prophets or saints. I mean, it's a fascinating idea of sort of how a country looks at itself and creates its stories. And was that something that was true to the White City as well?
I think that was a bit of a license on our own part. I think that was more from hearing. I'm a bit of a history nerd, right? So I like reading history.
Evident in the game.
And when you read a lot of history, and you have to tend to read a lot of history, because if you read one book, if you go read, Max Boot, you'll get one very view of the world, and you go read Howard Zinn, you'll get a very different view of the world. So you tend to have to read a lot of different things and understand everybody brings a viewpoint to it. But what's interesting to me about the founding fathers of America, is they were people, and they were both remarkable, amazing, incredible people, so far ahead of their time, who did things that would be unthinkable today, like a politician like George Washington stepping down after his first term, where he easily could have become Caesar, and setting the tone for America, or a guy like Thomas Jefferson to writing the Declaration of Independence, and then Madison, writing the Bill of Rights, and working on the Bill of Rights, and all these people who sort of created all these amazing things, let alone Franklin and his government and his inventions and the post office and all these incredible things. But they were men of their time. Like we think of Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, which is actually, they sort of view him in this world of Columbia as a devil, because he changed the nature of the founders' vision in their view. It was freedom for a certain type of person, not everybody. And to be fair, when Lincoln freed the slaves, there were still plenty of disenfranchised people.
Yes.
It wasn't like he said everybody gets to vote, everybody gets to be free. There was still lots of disparity there. And if you had asked Lincoln, the man who literally gave his life for emancipation of African Americans, what he thought of African Americans, he would have sounded like the worst white supremacist you've ever met, because he was a man of his time. Almost none of the abolitionists had what you would call a modern view of race. They had a very sort of benighted view of race, but they, even outside of that context, were ahead of their time.
I'm going to pause there. So I just want to show you that quick video because that is a good example of what I mean of the golden age of gaming, right? And I have a lot of respect for Ken Levine and for his vision for Bioshock. I mean, it's one of those old games that are still memorable today. And so yeah, it's once again, video games is, video games today is just not the same. It seems like we're shifting into a better direction. It seems like we're finally getting those quality video games and those video games with a sense of personality and identity, which is great. I hope we get to see more great video games and that have a sense of meaning. And it's to me video games can do a lot. It's an interactive medium, and you can have a thought-provoking story and complex characters. You can do a lot of things in video games which would be very difficult in movies, but unfortunately we just don't, because it's just too risky. But anyway, I'm ranting here for too long. But yeah, it's, once again, hopefully, looking at Resident Evil, hopefully this shifts the video game industry into a better direction. Hopefully we get to see more games like this. We get to see, quality IPs and developers able to give their, actually implement their creative vision, have that creative freedom so they can give us a quality game, give us something unique. So yeah, anyway, I'm just going to end it from there. I'm just talking too long here. So, but just let me know if you agree or disagree, if I make any sense here. But yeah, but definitely, it seems like video games is slowly becoming exciting again. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe it's just a fluke. Who knows? So, but yeah, hopefully we get to see more quality games in the future. So, and always remember to question things, and I'll see you until the next video. Thank you.